How's my audio, everyone?
Good.
DJ.
Good. We can hear you good.
Okay. How you doing, Lana?
Doing well. How are you doing?
I'm
Hanging in
here.
there. Hanging in there with the balloons.
I just got out of that basket right behind me. So, hey Daniel,
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You?
Good. Glad it's Friday,
Yeah, tell me. Say that one more time.
right? Glad it's Friday.
I don't even know what that means
Oh, come on, Lana.
because it's like the weekend comes and there's more work to do then, it seems like.
That's also true.
Maybe it's I'm getting older and it hurts more.
Don't say that. That means we're all getting there. Don't say that.
I agree with you, Lana. You are a young spring chicken compared to me, kiddo. So
Oh, you're too kind, too kind.
you come on. There you go.
Lana, I have a question here. I'm looking, do we have others that is joining a team meeting, much less at a Zoom? Because seems like there's two separate mediums is being used here.
Eugene, I'm getting the same messages as you.
Because I have four that apparently have joined a team meeting for 1:30. And then of course we have ours here. So let me hop off. Let me hop on for a moment and let everyone know there's a Zoom here. So give me a second here.
All right, good afternoon, everybody. I am Gabriel Aguilera, one of the commissioners here at the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. And I'll call the meeting to order soon. So I have the privilege of doing that today, but I want to first check. Erica, are you on? This,
I
are
am.
those
I'm
the
here.
phones? Okay, great. And
And Commissioner
okay,
Nybert is here as well.
great. Okay. Well, again, welcome. This is a special open meeting workshop to talk about the PRC's 2025 SRUSF report to the legislature. And it is Friday, June 6th at 1:30. So we'll get this meeting started with a roll call. Would you mind doing that, please, Ms. Stephans?
Absolutely. Commissioner Aguilera,
I am present.
Commissioner Nybert,
Present.
and Commissioner O'Connell will not be joining us today. So we have two commissioners and we have a quorum.
Great. We have a very short agenda before us today, Commissioner Nybert. Well, at least the agenda itself is short, not necessarily the the discussion for it. But do the Commissioner, do you have any suggestions or changes for the agenda?
I do
Commissioner-
not.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Eugene, if I may, I'm noticing that there are participants in a team meeting that is basically for this meeting as well. And so I'm wondering if there are some people that are not attending here because they're on the wrong medium.
Okay. I think someone would need to then join that Teams meeting, and if they are participants, then if you wouldn't mind, please forwarding the Zoom meeting invite, which is the correct one for this. I think there's sometimes when they set up the calendar invite, there's a Teams link that is automatically included. However, we conduct our meetings via Zoom so that we could also post them on YouTube. So if somebody on staff, maybe Eugene, if you wouldn't mind doing that, just giving them the link, forwarding the Zoom link if they're participants. If they're just observers, then they could also watch the meeting on YouTube.
I would definitely attempt to do that. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay, well, thank you for letting me know about that. I think with that, maybe I'll ask Mr. Rodriguez if we have anybody who has signed up for public comment.
Commissioner, yes, we do have two individuals. However, they are not on Zoom, but
Okay.
they might be on Teams. So
Okay.
let you know.
And
In that,
sorry to interrupt, but I don't think we ever voted on the agenda approval.
oh, okay, and we have to vote on it. Okay, so we'll do that, and that'll give a little bit of time for people to join the Zoom link. And then we might wait a little bit longer just to make sure that we have the people who signed up so that they could have their opportunity for public comment. So given that there are no suggested changes for the agenda, I would move to approve the agenda as posted.
Second.
Okay. And would you mind calling the roll, or not the roll, but the vote?
Of course. Commissioner Nybert,
Yes.
Commissioner Aguilera,
Yes.
the vote passes.
Okay. Mr. Rodriguez, I'll rely on you a little bit here since I don't know who's been signed up for public comment to see if we have those commenters signed on.
Of course, yes, we do have one on Zoom
Okay.
right now, so I'll call them. Nicolau, are you there?
Yes.
And you do wish to provide public comment, correct?
Sonny Nixon, our attorney, will provide the comment. I'm joining for now.
Oh, okay. My apologies. Sonny, are you there?
I am here. Is this John?
No, this is Patrick Rodriguez with
Oh,
the
Patrick. Yes, I am on.
Do you wish to provide public comment?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Sure. I represent, my name is Sunny Nixon. I represent Sacred Wind Communications, Inc. with the Rhodey Law Firm. And I wanted to just briefly, Sacred Wind did file comments on December 5, as required by the Commission's initial order, 5/24. And just briefly, I'd just like to make a very brief statement as to what Sacred Wind's position is on this matter of the repurposing of ARS payments with the termination of those on December 31, 2026. Sacred Wind agrees with NMECG's, that is the carrier group's, comments and approach to continue the much needed SRUS support for the benefit of our rural and mainly tribal customers. Sacred Wind's basic and broadband network is both fiber and fixed wireless, with new Tarana fixed wireless equipment achieving about 500 Mbps to the home. And Sacred Wind is an ETC, eligible telecommunication customer, and an RLEC, qualified to receive SRUS support. Due to the higher costs of providing service in rural and tribal areas of Northwest New Mexico, our customers could not afford either basic or broadband service without USF, Universal Service Fund support. Sacred Wind believes that a prioritization be given to RLECs in the way of a set-aside or a carve-out of SRUSS support, that is, fund support, insofar as the RLECs in New Mexico, number one, are carriers of last resort, which means, of course, that they're required by the PRC to serve all customers within a discrete service territory and prohibited from abandoning service. And number two, are subject to a line extension tariff, which mandates a specified amount of its resources to connect to any and all customers. I can go into the formula of that, but it's basically 7 times the basic charge, annual charge, and then 12 months. So it's about $1,970. And Sacred Wind often spends more than that, particularly for fixed wireless customers, due to the need to construct a fiber to tower system whose purpose is to reach multiple customers over a very large area. And then 3, RLECs finance their infrastructure commonly versus RUS, Rural Utility Service, USDA loans, which place long-term obligations on the borrower. And RUS issues these loans, recognizing that these borrowers will be a long time in that area. In other words, they're not going to abandon service because they can't unless the commission allows them to do so. And for example, Sacred Wind has received 2 USDA loans, a $55 million loan for fiber for a fixed wireless system to fully replace the former Quest copper network, and a $13.6 million for fiber backbone from Gallup to Albuquerque. And because Sacred Wind was the last RLEC established in New Mexico after the creation of the revised SRUSF, which was to compensate the incumbent RLECs for their loss of access charge funding, Sacred Wind's access to SRUS was initially limited until the state statute, that is 639H6M, was enacted in 2021 to have Sacred Wind participate in the fund on equal footing with other RLECs. With the most recent amendments in 2023 to the RTA, the Rural Telecommunications Act, Sacred Wind support based on the average of comparable carrier support will end on December 31, 2026, like other RLECs. And ESTA and Sacred Wind will need to seek continued support under a new program available to all RLECs and ETCs. If the SRUSF will be made open to all ETCs for operational and maintenance support, in addition to broadband construction grant program, a set aside or a carve out for RLECs should not cause the fund to exceed the $40 million cap effective after December 31, 2026. So that concludes our opening statement, and we'd stand for any questions whenever. And I believe John Badal is also maybe on the phone or on the Zoom call. He was traveling and is trying to make the call. He may be on.
Thank you, Ms. Nixon. So this is the portion of the agenda where we're seeking comment from the public, and I don't know, Mr. Fons, do you have kind of a list of presentations or discussions that are planned?
So no, the logistics with this workshop is more of a free-form discussion, and it will be organized according to the commission's initial bench request. So regarding the use of the retired ARS funds, that will be a point of discussion later.
Yeah. Okay. So we plan to discuss that, and at that appropriate time, I will turn it over to Ms. Stephans to see to manage that discussion. Thank you for the comment, Mr. Rodriguez. Do we have another commenter online?
They are not online at the moment, Commissioner.
Okay. And is there anybody else that wishes to provide public comment, again from the public, in terms of the substance for this workshop? We will be getting into that during the next agenda item. Okay, I don't see any hands up. So I think that will conclude the public comment portion of this agenda. And at this point, I will turn it over to Ms. Avila Stephans to run the discussion between the stakeholders.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
So first of all, I want to thank everyone for being here. Really, as Commissioner had stated, this is really an opportunity for the stakeholders to discuss the content of the Commission's 2025 report to the legislator. And I think the issue on most of our minds is what will happen with the retiring ARS funds. Before we get started on the discussion, I wanted to kind of talk about some logistics just to make sure that the conversation runs smoothly. So what I'm going to do, as I said to Commissioner Aguilera, is just reiterate the questions from the Commission's initial order, which just largely mirrors the statutory requirements for this reporting to the legislator. And I will either call on specific respondents to kick off the conversation based on your response to the initial order, and then I'll let participants respond to that. Or I may just lay it out there for anyone to respond, and I will let you know. Before you respond, I ask that you just raise your hand and I will call upon you, just so, again, so this conversation is organized and to make sure that we're not talking over each other. Last issue of logistics is that the Commission has an open rulemaking docket 25007 UT. Because the Commission has not issued a final order in that docket and the record is closed, I may have to limit some of our discussions. But I did notice that some of the issues in this docket might overlap with that docket. So to the extent that anyone was concerned about issues in that rulemaking docket being presented here, I hope you are here to make your case, or you are aware that the discussion is being had. So let's get started. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to start with introductions, and I'll go down the list of participants as I see them on my screen, and I'll ask you to unmute and let us know your name and who you represent. We have about 27 participants, so um, again, I'll just call on you as I see you on my list. Let me see. So, Miss Nixon.
Yes, I'm unmuting. So yes, I am here. I represent Sacred Wind Communications, Inc. And I'm with the Rhodey Law Firm, and I've already made a statement. So
Thank you.
not knowing that that wasn't the place to do it. So I've just
Not
done
at
it
all.
out of the way that way.
Perfect. Mr. Nicolau.
Yes, thank you. I'm Neo Nicolau. I'm the general manager of Sacred Wind Communications.
Plateau.
Lana Waller with ENMR Telephone Cooperative and Plateau Telecommunications.
Thank you. Mr. Moffett.
Good afternoon, Commissioner Aguilera and Commissioner Nybert and all others on the Zoom. I am Mike Moffett, and I'm the attorney for the New Mexico Exchange Carrier Group, also referenced here as the NMECG. And we have a lot of members on the Zoom here. You'll be introduced here. We're comprised of 10 rural local exchange carriers that have been providing telecommunication services to rural New Mexicans for decades. Thank you.
The Santillaneses. Is it plural?
Thank you, Erica, and good afternoon, Commissioner Aguilera and Commissioner Nybert. I'm Mateka Santillanes, the Executive Director for the New Mexico Exchange Carrier Group.
And I'm Jay Santillanes, the lobbyist for the New Mexico Exchange Carrier Group.
Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Bogotko.
Hi there. Good afternoon, commissioners, Erica, Russell, everybody else. John Bagacco with the New Mexico Public Regulation Commission. On behalf of the Telecommunications Bureau, and I'm accompanied by our Bureau Chief, Eugene Evans, this afternoon. Thank you.
Eugene. I think everyone knows you, but
Hello, everyone. Incidentally, yes, I'm Eugene Evans. I'm the Telecommunication Bureau Chief for staff. Also, Guy Trolley is trying to get on. Apparently, needs to get a link. So if anyone can get that to Guy, I appreciate it too. But welcome, everyone.
Mr. Yar.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Commissioner. Joseph Yar on behalf of CTIA.
Mr. Vidal.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Commissioners, commission staff, and colleagues. I'm John Bedell. I'm founder and former CEO of Sacred Wind Communications, and glad to be here and glad to see you all.
Mr. Messler.
Yep. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, commissioners. My name is Daniel Mesler. I'm the general manager of Tularosa Basin Telephone Company.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that company again?
Tularosa Basin Telephone Company.
Tularosa. Perfect.
Yep.
Ms. Jordan.
My name is Evelyn Jordan, and I am the Director of Revenue Requirements for Western New Mexico Telephone Company. And thank you very much for the opportunity to have this workshop. Thank you, commissioners.
Mr. Hibbard.
Hi, my name is Mitch Hibbard. I'm with Penasco Valley Telephone Cooperative in the southeast part of the state. We are a member of the New Mexico Exchange Carriers Group. Thank you all for having this today. And it was great to see you guys in Ruidoso too. Thank you for coming down here.
Ms. Young.
Sorry, I was having a hard time unmuting. Hi, I'm Leslie Young. I work in the regulatory department for Windstream Communications.
Paul.
Yes, my name is Paul Breach, General Manager of Baca Valley Telephone in Des Moines, New Mexico. Thank you.
Thank you. Lico or Mr. Jimenez? Sorry, we didn't hear you, Mr. Jimenez. Doesn't look like your audio is working. We'll come back to you. Miss Terwilliger? And you're muted, sorry. Can't hear you.
I thought I unmuted myself. Sorry. Debria Twilliger on behalf of Comcast.
Mr. O'Rourke?
And good afternoon, D. O'Rourke, Associate General Counsel with Verizon.
Miss Archibek?
Hello, I'm Cecile Archibald, General Manager of Roosevelt County Telephone and Yucca Telecom, Portales, New Mexico.
Mr. Montoya?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Erica. Johnny Montoya, Vice President of State Government Affairs for Windstream Kinetic.
And we have Russell?
Hello, I'm Russell Fisk from the Commission's Office of General Counsel.
And then I think that leaves, oh my goodness, there's so many. Mr. Arizmendi?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Victor Arismendi, consultant representing Dell Telephone Cooperative with the NMECG Group.
Mr. Turley?
Good afternoon. Guy Turley. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for Smith Bagley Incorporated. Thank you for having us this afternoon.
And Ben?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
There we go. The video popped on. My apologies. My name is Ben Aaron. I represent CTIA. We are the trade association for the wireless industry. Representatives include Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, but also carriers, regional carriers such as Smith Bagley. Excited to be a part of the proceedings today. I do have to apologize that I have a pre-existing conflict that's going to pop up in 7 minutes, so I might have to drop and come back. But our local counsel, Joseph Yar, is on. He'll announce himself. So even if I have to drop off, I'll keep track of it that way. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. And yes, we met Mr. Yar earlier. I have someone, Nicole.
Good afternoon, Nicole McDaniel. I'm the Chief Business Officer for Smith Bagley, Inc.
Perfect. Great. And Mr. Jimenez, do you want to give it another try?
Yes, can you hear me?
Perfect. Yes, there you are.
Okay, so David Jimenez, we're a cooperative in Lee County, also an NMECG member. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think I got everyone. Please raise your hand if I missed you. Okay, nice. Nailed it. Okay, so to get started on why we are all here, the first question in the commission's initial order opening the docket was just an inquiry as to why there has been a decrease in the requests for broadband program support. I think that's particularly relevant this year. I just took a peek at the commission's broadband program support docket, and we only received 4 applications this year. So in addition to a general explanation as to why there's a decrease in requests for broadband support, I guess I am curious why ETCs did not submit applications this year. And I'll leave that as an open question for anyone who's willing to respond. Please just raise your hands. So let's talk about it.
Anyone?
Ms. Tiffons, we have a hand up.
Oh, Mr. Moffett, please go ahead.
Thank you. As we pointed out in our response, we believe that um, it's not that the broadband fund isn't desperately needed for these projects. It is. There was a criteria and still is a criteria that is being looked at that eliminates projects based on the cost per customer. And as everyone knows who applies for these types of broadband grants, we're in the most rural areas of New Mexico, and some of the members of the NMECG have 3 customers per square mile. And when you're submitting an application like that, you're going to get kicked out and not looked at because of the cost per customer. And so one of our recommendations is that we're fine with the other criteria that the commission uses, and I understand, and we understand that the commission needs to use criteria to ferret out, where to give the money. But these applications aren't inexpensive. They do cost something for the carriers to have to put forward. And they have to make a judgment call based on, well, how likely is our application going to be granted? And some of our members have had to make the decision not to even apply in certain rounds of this because the cost per customer they can see is going to be exceptionally high. And that's historically been a reason why funding has not been available for some of those projects. So I wanted to put that out there. That's one thing that we believe is a reason why you may see a decrease. But what we expect will be really an increase of requests for funding, because once the ARS payments cease at the end of 2026, and as the commissioners may know, ARS payments that are made to NMECG carriers and others are required by statute to be used for maintenance of their networks. And so we're already using this money to maintain our networks, but when that ARS funding ceases at the end of 2026, then I would expect an increase in applications for maintenance funding. And I want the commission to be aware of that we certainly expect that, because that funding is vital to our ongoing sustainability and ability to provide rural New Mexicans with reliable, high quality broadband access. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Ms. Bagley.
I'm sorry, Erica, can I interrupt?
Oh, yes, please go ahead.
I just wanted to address something that Mike just mentioned, and that is a aspect of saying that the cost is some sort of a criteria that eliminates particular projects, and that's not entirely true. I think there is in our deliberation of trying to choose the projects, we use some portion of that as a criteria to basically fund as many projects we possibly could during that particular time when our funds were probably is not at the highest it may be, or we're trying to get as many projects other than one large project. So it's not entirely correct there, Mike, is saying that it is a prohibited portion of the program by saying that the high cost will not get eliminated. Now, I know that has happened in the past, but it's also when you have one high, you actually probably is supplying 3 or 4 different more projects. So I just want to put that out there in a sense of just to answer what you made the question.
Hello, this is John. I don't see the hand icon on this thing, but I'd like to add to what Eugene said. Hello, Eugene. Uh, I think with the BEAD funding that has been out there for the last several years, I think it has, in a certain way, particularly as Eugene is describing, it's sort of distracted a lot of people. I mean, a number of companies in New Mexico and throughout the country have applied for BEAD funding, and there are just so many projects and so many applications a small company can take on. A company the size of Sacred Wind, or any of the companies of the sizes of the companies in the NMECG too, have very few internal resources for the application process. Those have to be contracted out. And I think a number of these companies had participated in the BEAD project, in this community, the big grant project, and thus we're sort of exhausted from I think just again we're had their resources exhausted in terms of applying for an additional grant.
Thank you for that addition. That's helpful. Smith Bagley, I had a quick question. So last year, SBI withdrew several projects, and I was just curious if there was a correlation between the withdrawal or if SBI sees a correlation between the withdrawal of last year and the decrease in projects generally.
This is Guy Turley. I'll do my best to answer that, Erica.
Sure.
I don't know that there's a correlation for others. I would say that for us, as we had pointed out with the withdrawals that we made last year, there's certainly some uncertainty in the future for a variety of reasons. There was a loss of the ACP funding that I think many had enjoyed in providing that to their customers. And so that had an impact. There's also been some uncertainty in a lot of our service area about what the regulations are going to look like going forward, including what rental rates there may be, particularly on the Navajo Nation. And so a combination of changes in the revenue landscape, as well as uncertainty about the regulations that we're facing, have contributed to the withdrawal that we made last year, and then also certainly carried over into some impact into this year as well.
Okay.
So it wasn't because we don't think there's some viable projects out there. It's more of the uncertainties that we are seeing.
Okay.
Erica, this is Paul with Baca Valley. I don't see a way to raise my hand on this either. I apologize.
No worries. Thanks
I
for
don't mean
trying.
I don't mean to butt in.
No, not at all. Go ahead.
We've been one of the largest, I don't know if it's the largest users. We're the smallest small company in New Mexico, and we've been, thanks to Eugene and his staff's help, we've been one of the companies that have used this program the most. And our reason we did not apply this year, we're in the beginning and ending stages of about 14 projects. And so we're overwhelmed at this point. The other thing is, we were having a huge problem with material availability and contractor availability, part of it due to BEAD, I'm sure. And we couldn't guarantee that we could have these projects done in 3 years. We've had to ask for a couple of extensions just for the simple fact is we cannot get some of the right-of-way issues are happening and they're affecting us. But the biggest problem we're having is material and contractor availability. And we cannot, guarantee the 3-year window. And so we just didn't apply for any. We need to get some of these current ones finished. And then we hope to do that again next year. But I just didn't want any more stress on us or Eugene with us waiting for material that we just can't get along with contractors. So thank you.
Thank you for that, Paul. Anyone else have any additions to that?
This is Mitch at PVT, and just to support what Mike was saying, we love the broadband program. We've only been successful in getting one award, but we were able to get it built very, very quickly. Our cost per location has caused us in several years to not get an award, and most of us in the denser populations, we've been pretty good at getting the 25.3 out. So they're usually considered just underserved, not unserved. So we just haven't had a great application for it. Plus, with some of the state funding, which we expect to dry up now, and also with the RUS funding, we too have been very, very busy. And with a half customer, just like Paul, who was just speaking, we both have about a half customer per square mile. It's just, we're looking at 20,000 per location, and it's been mentioned in the past. About 3,500 was the break off, and things like that. So it's just been tough to find something to put in there.
Okay. Thank you, Mitch. So what I don't hear people saying is that we are getting close to achieving universal service. Is that fair to say? Okay.
That is fair
Erica,
to say, yes.
It's Lana at Plateau.
Hi, Lon.
You're exactly right, but the reason for our company in particular that we didn't apply this year, we've applied every year since its inception, and it is a great program. We've been very successful with it. We have one outstanding that we're working on right now, but as far as our ILEC area goes, we're 98% fiber built out. That's 25,000 square miles along the eastern side of the state. The remaining 2% will be done within a year and a half, and it's already funded. So from an ILEC perspective, there were no more locations for us to go and build. From a CLEC perspective, and that's what our one outstanding New Mexico broadband grant is, there's still those places to go, but this year with, as John Badal mentioned, with BEAD in play and with so many other projects going on, we're in the midst of trying to complete 5 projects already, including a $103 million middle mile project. So our reasoning this year was, as much as we wanted to, there was the capacity for our staff and our company just wasn't there right now.
Thank you, Lana. Okay. Are there any last additions? Otherwise, I'll move on to our next question.
Eric, I'd like to address what everyone had pretty much said, and I'd like to concur on what I'm hearing about the aspect of how the avenue of resources is starting to get drying up because of BEAD and the flush of broadband funding federally is coming into the state, and it's kind of stressing everyone, companies out in some ways. So I see this ebb and flow of this year is due to that. I do anticipate next year to be a little bit much better than it is from this year. But I also want to stress anyone out there that is thinking that the high cost of your job or the project is a inhibitor for you doing it, please don't do that. Still put in the application because it is something that we need to know as a commission of what projects you do have out there and what is viable for your serving territory. So at least if you can, put it out. And because I tends to keep a record of everything in that manner, so I won't forget. And sometimes I will reach out to you guys and say, "What are you going to put a new application for this year?" So don't let that be an inhibited stopgap for you. Please still put it out for the commission.
Commissioner, go ahead.
I'll add to that. And then quickly, I'll, for anybody who wants to raise their hand, there's an icon at the bottom in the middle that says React, and you can use balloons, heart, or just raise your hand. So, um, that's how you can do that. And so I just want to, just speak to this a little bit. Speaking for myself only, I don't speak for the commission, but I can share my thoughts with you here. Last year, we were able to fund all of the projects, and there were some projects that had a cost per customer that were higher, I think, than we would have normally granted. And that was um, uh, just kind of a situation where we had the funding. It wasn't outrageously expensive, and we felt that it would be worthwhile to fund those projects. I do appreciate the comments that I'm hearing about there are some customers that are just way out there and it would be very expensive for various reasons. I don't know, maybe it's rocky and it's, it's just expensive to build around there. And so I do want to clarify that while cost does not prohibit selection of a project, it is something that we take into account. After all, it is the taxpayers' money, right? So I personally feel an obligation to make sure that we're using it wisely. And but I don't think that precludes a project from being selected. And so, as Eugene was saying, you can't be awarded if you don't apply, and also the information is helpful. I did want to put out one question, if anybody is willing to answer it. For those where you have maybe 3 or 4, just a handful of customers, about how much cost per customer are we talking about? Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Vidal.
There you go, Commissioner. This is John Bedell, and I'll invite Neo Nicolau of our company to add more to this because he's directly involved in pricing out projects. The Sacred Wind operates mostly on Navajo lands in northwest New Mexico. It's about 98% of our customer base is Navajo. And the Navajo communities are some of the most dispersed communities in the state. And for that reason, we have limited fiber to the home. We have several hundred houses that are connected by fiber. These are the houses that are more clustered together. And we have a lot of houses, hundreds of, actually a few thousand houses that are scattered. And for this reason, we've built fixed wireless systems where we go fiber to a tower and carry and the tower then carries that capacity by microwave to homes. And it can cost us several thousands of dollars, up to $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 per household. Fortunately for us in the state of New Mexico, we were able to pay for the bulk of our fixed wireless system with a USDA loan. So that didn't come out of grant monies, right? With grant monies, we have to be more circumspect, as to the projects we choose. But the bottom line for us is to have a support system that would cover our maintenance costs and operational costs. We charge, as the other regulated rural local exchange carriers in the state, around $23.50 for local service, whereas the cost of our service runs a little over $200 a month per customer. And so this is why there is a federal USF to cover some of that expense, and this is why there has been an SRUSF, a state fund to cover the operational side of the business. But when we're looking for a grant now to build out a network beyond where we go here, there is no more low-hanging fruit. And we've exhausted with fixed wireless and fiber, we've exhausted the middle-hanging fruit. It's all the high-hanging fruit now. So it's not unreasonable to expect from here on out that the per household cost of construction and accompanying that, the per household cost of maintenance and operations is going to be exceedingly high. And the question that all of us have is, at what extent do we say that, enough is enough, this is all we can do?
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. And also want to note that I am on fixed wireless because I could not get fiber to my house. And also, I just realized it's not lost on me that we are having this meeting over broadband, which we don't normally do over just virtual. So I don't know if that was intentional to test out the technologies. No, I'm kidding. Thank you. Mr. Turley, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Commissioner. I just wanted to kind of reiterate some of what Mr. Badal spoke to here, is that as we've been successful in progressing on some of these projects, there is going to be, I think, increased cost. And one of the things that he mentioned there is that maintaining these systems is becoming increasingly more challenging and costly to maintain these systems, not just to build them, but to maintain them. And I think that's an important thing for the commission to consider going forward. And I think that's part of why we're here today, is to consider maintenance of these systems in the most rural areas and tribal areas of New Mexico.
Mr. Montoya. Sorry, I'm sorry, Miss Avalos-Stefans. I didn't mean to take over. But
No, you're
Ms.
doing great.
Montoya, go ahead.
You can take over, please.
Thank you, Commissioner. Just real quick, I think it's important to note that the conversation, I think, is timely, right? As some of us know, NTIA put out some guidance a couple of hours ago on revising their BEAD process in a new notice of funding opportunity. And it drastically changes the fundamentals of what the BEAD program was yesterday, which would, in my opinion, allow some of the members on this call to find the PRC's broadband program even more attractive. But the new guidance, as I read it, and it's fresh, basically is to provide lowest cost or grants to lowest cost technologies. So if you're a fiber-based company and the lowest cost happens to be a cellular or a fixed wireless solution, they are now included in the BEAD application. So I say that only because the question that Erica stated, right, on what could discourage applications, and I think Paul's response was accurate, saying there was some pressure with regards to the BEAD process. Many folks were focusing their 25% of their resources on the BEAD application, right, with limited resources. And now that may be changing, it may make the broadband program a little bit more appealing to some of the providers on this call.
Thank you. Mr. Hibbert.
Yeah, and just like Johnny said, and with the information that is hot off the presses here, and we're all still kind of skimming over it and trying to digest it. But I mean, to me, what it looks like is a lot of areas are going to get Starlink or Kuiper or what, whatever LEO is out there at the time this funding goes through. Now, while that is a sufficient substitute for some folks, it's not a permanent sustainable solution. And so the need for this program is still going to be great because these folks can get Starlink now, but the BEAD money looks like it's going to go a lot to that. So this will be a very active program going forward.
Thank you. I'll turn it back over to you, Ms. Stefans.
Please feel free to take over whenever you feel like it. So that brings us to the million-dollar question here is, should the access reduction support funding be repurposed for the broadband program? We have a unanimous yes from, or almost unanimous. And I'd like to hear, I guess, first from CTIA, who suggested maybe it wasn't a good idea, and then we can have responses. So I'll turn it over to CTIA.
Hi, everybody. Joseph Yar on behalf of CTIA. Ben had to drop off. Hopefully he'll get back. As our comments had indicated, it's CTIA's position that given, and I'm not familiar with BEAD's changes as recently as 24 hours ago, but given the fact that BEAD has been available and is driving a lot of these costs, maybe now is a good time to make sure that the local exchange carriers and the local carriers here exploit that to the fullest extent possible. There's a lot of money out there in those BEAD programs. I mean, over $600 million. CTIA's position is that those funds should be used, and expanding the program here at this point might be premature, given the fact that a lot of these programs take years to develop, and as many of the commenters have said previously, maintaining these networks is a cost. So those are the considerations I think CTIA would like the commission to consider relative to how to deal with these with the fund going forward.
Mr. Moffett.
Thank you, Erica. Yeah, I just wanted to comment on what Joseph was just talking about. He was talking about maybe it's premature to expand the program now. The important thing I want to make sure the commission knows about is that right now, the ARS payments that are being received are required by statute to go into maintenance of the broadband access. So that is the current state right now. We're not interested in changing that other than the fact that the ARS payments are going to go away. So that money for maintenance that we're used to having is going to be gone, and we're going to need to ask for it, I guess, more directly as a maintenance as opposed to in the form of an ARS payment. It's already being used for maintenance as it's required. So I don't want the commission to have the impression that, oh, we're going through, it's premature to change the program. This part of the program, I believe, needs to stay the same. What I suspect, though, is as we continue to build out on these other broadband projects, there's going to be more need for maintenance of those systems and facilities from those companies. And I think we're all on the same page on that. And when we get to that point, the NMECG proposed a methodology and a mechanism to try to get us to that point and evaluate it. And then maybe we'll have a discussion about that in this workshop. Maybe we'll need another workshop for that. But for purposes of today, I agree that we seem to all be on board that we need maintenance funds from the fund. And I just want the commission to recognize that we, meaning the members of the NMECG that receive ARS payments, are technically receiving funds that have to be used for maintenance. They're just not called maintenance funds. So And on the one hand, maybe that's a change because we're changing the name from ARS to maintenance fund recipients instead of ARS fund recipients. But that wouldn't really necessarily be a huge change to what's already happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Badal?
Yes, thank you again. And I'd like to speak directly to the ARS. Sacred Wind is the only rural telephone company in the state that didn't participate in the ARS, and since we didn't exist until after the access charges, interstate and intrastate, were eliminated. So we agree that the ARS payments should cease and should be repurposed, but I think that some prioritization should be given to the rural local exchange carriers who are providers of last resort in the state, who have operated in our discrete service territory, and we cannot abandon our customers. We are not a competitive company. We are a regulated telephone company that is obligated, statutorily and regulatorily obligated to serve our customers. But the ARS, I think, is flawed in that, and it was historically flawed in that it was based on access charges that the local companies charge long distance companies. So not only do access charges not exist, but the long distance companies. What is long distance anymore? And I'll give you one example of how the ARS didn't work, even for companies here in New Mexico. When Mescalero Apache Telephone Company came into existence, it bought the local system that was owned by GTE Telecom in southern New Mexico. And at the time, GTE, operating on the Mescalero Reservation, only had about 300 subscribers. And so those 300 subscribers made a certain amount of long distance calling. And when the access charges and the amount of money from the long distance companies that were paid into the GT operation to connect them, the local network, to the long distance network, it was the amount that GTE received from long distance companies was based on 300 customers. Well, Mescalero Apache, after it expressed its sovereignty and picked up that phone company, has over 1,000 customers now, or approximately 1,000 customers now. So they have been receiving a de minimis amount of ARS payments since their founding. And the opposite can be true with some other companies who have lost customers. So the ARS payments were the USF, the state USF, based on ARS payments, should go away. But in repurposing those payments, I think there should be a carve out for a broadband grant program, a construction program, and there should be a carve out also for the RLECs, for the rural local exchange carriers, who are providers of last resort in their territory, and many of us, nearly all of us, need additional operating and maintenance support to keep our customers from being overcharged or exceedingly charged for the service that they're receiving in the highest of the high costing areas of the state of New Mexico. Thank you very much.
Russell?
Thank you. So I just would like a little clarification. I was looking at NMECG's response to the initial order, and certainly I'd like to hear from Mike Moffett and any of the members of NMECG who would like to talk about this. But it seems to me there is one option available under the current statute that could potentially cover things like maintenance costs. This is not, I'm not your lawyer, and this is not my final legal opinion. Give you some qualified caveats, but subsection N of of 639H6 still provides, even as amended, for what we would call need-based support, which is what Sacred Wind received for 5 years. Based on, and it can be based on revenues. It doesn't have to be based on revenues. But it seems like some of these things might fit within that category. I know, and so one, I'm looking for clarification as to, for NMECGs and anyone else's proposals about, for in the context of this report, if are we looking at subsection N, or are we looking at maintenance only awards under the broadband program? Two, I would note that this workshop was noticed with a special note about the ongoing rulemaking, in which it has been proposed that there be maintenance only awards under the broadband program, and that's an issue that, nothing that's said here would be taken into consideration for that, because the record is closed in that matter. But it sounds like there might be some overlap in the concepts we're talking about. And so I'm really looking to see if people are talking about subsection N, the need-based support generally, that's always been in the statute as far as I know, and how that might cover maintenance, because it covers all kinds of costs, and or are we talking about specifically within the broadband program? Both of those things are available within the $30 million cap. That's my reading of the statute. But when it comes to the broadband program, a maintenance only award would only be available if the commission decides, perhaps next week, to allow those, that's a live question there, so I won't go into that. But if people could clarify whether you're seeking under subsection N or broadband program, or both.
Russell, this is Mike Moffett. Since you called me out, I guess I'll respond first. We weren't directing that to any particular provision like that. I know the section N you're talking about dealing with need, and I guess if you had to analyze what has to be proven for quote unquote need under that particular provision, that's not something I looked at or am prepared to discuss today. But I hear what you're saying. I have the very similar understanding of the statute and the rules that asking for support for maintenance is permitted, and it's permitted both under N and under the SRUSF statute and the RTA that specifically allows for construction and maintenance funding. And there was a suggestion out there, I guess, in one of the comments dealing with, well, when it deals with the broadband program, the allegation was you have to ask for maintenance with a construction application. And there's a reading of the rule that I see that they're taking from that. But what I was looking at is the RTA, and section 639H-60 clearly says that the commission is supposed to adopt rules to establish and implement a broadband program to provide funding to ETCs for the construction and maintenance of broadband infrastructure. There's no distinction between, well, it has to be primarily for construction and secondarily for maintenance. In other words, the legislature saying, no, this fund is being set up for support to maintain the facilities and support to construct the facilities. So I think we're allowed to ask for maintenance under either. I don't think it has to be maintenance only or construction primarily and maintenance secondarily under the broadband program. But I without having looked at it, Russell, my comment about the need, the application for need was something separate. And I haven't done one of those, and I'm trying to remember back in the past, you may have set in on one of those for need. I'm not sure what you have to show for that. Maybe it's similar to what we're asking for in our proposed report that we're suggesting we should use in going forward. So I guess to answer your question, Russell, we weren't picking or pinning down any particular provision other than the RTA's provision, which is that 63-9H60.
Thank you.
Mr. Turley?
Thank you. Just I had a couple follow-up comments to some of what has been here. Not the most recent dialogue and back and forth with Mr. Fisk and Mr. Moffett, but prior to that, one of the thoughts as Mr. Yar from CTIA had mentioned, specifically talking about BEAD. By the way, just for full disclosure, Smith Bagley is a member of CTIA, but we obviously serve in the more rural parts than many of the other CTI members. But with respect to the thoughts about BEAD and taking advantage of that or other funding, I think it makes sense to look at that. But there's something that's missing from BEAD and from many of these other programs, and that's the ongoing maintenance. And that's part of the discussion that we're having today, is that especially in these rural areas, the business cases that I think that many of our companies, the providers here in New Mexico, and especially the rural parts of the state, deal with is a population or customer or subscriber base that's not growing, but in many cases may be declining. And that makes it more challenging to try and provide the quality networks that we've put out there. And that is what we're talking about with the maintenance and the need for that. I think one of the things in talking about ARS, and this is just a note on things, Smith Bagley obviously is different than many of the providers that are here on this call. We are not an ILEC and RLEC. We're not a LEC. And providing broadband primarily in a mobile environment, there are differences in what we provide. There are key advantages in that mobile broadband that can be used by our customers as they drive the vast roadways in the rural parts of the state and have access to emergency services if they need those, as well as the flexibility to use that broadband service, whether they be at home, at school, picking up their kids from school, or at work, or wherever they may be. The ARS allocations that have been made in the past did not, Mr. Badal pointed out that Sacred Wind may not have taken advantage of those, but there are others that could not, and we're one of those companies that we could not take advantage of those. And we think that going forward, the repurposing of that to maintenance should be broadened to include not just the LECs, but also other broadband providers that provide a quality service to the people of New Mexico.
Okay, and this kind of leads me, well, does anyone have any more comments on this question? I'm leaning to go towards the next question now. So if anyone has any more comments, that would be the time. Okay, so the commission has given away has granted funding to approximately 180 projects over the past, since the beginning of broadband, I think. That might be off. Is that about right, Eugene? Yeah. So that would be a lot of projects to fund the operations of. Can anyone recommend NMECG? You provided a methodology on how we would determine the amount of support, broadband support would go to these projects. Can you kind of explain your proposal for that methodology?
Yes, thank you, Erica. And I have people on the call that can answer very specific questions if there are any on that. But essentially, our report would show the revenues and expenses that would be in connection with the operation and maintenance of the ETC's broadband network facilities. And that would account for any related federal funding or other support that's received. We would not be asking, for example, ISP related expenses, such as where a customer gets a modem or they need customer service or something like that. We're talking about maintaining the network that we have, the facility that provides the broadband access. And so what we're proposing is we have to do a lot of filings with the FCC. A lot of these filings, some of which are audited, some of which get certified by officers, for example. But what we're suggesting is that we provide an amount of reporting that is reliable and trustworthy that the commission can rely on and trust that, okay, this is exactly what our costs are, and we have a calculation to show if there is a shortfall. And so we want to avoid any duplicative recovery from any other sources. And so that's why we're having it. That's why we set out the criteria that we have in our report. And so if there are any questions about that, there can be somebody else on the phone that on the call here that can discuss those. But essentially, we're talking about only costs in New Mexico, so they'd be jurisdictionally related, only related to our facilities where we're providing the broadband access. And then we have this process that we suggest, and we suggest a process of where we forecast what we need for the upcoming year. We're suggesting that payments be made monthly for what the forecast is, but we don't leave it at that we actually provide the actual costs. Once they come in, we provide that. So then we can do a true up and figure out, well, were we off anywhere, and we can fix that deficit if that needs to be fixed. And so that's essentially our proposal, and that's what we're setting forth to try to get us down the road on how can we accomplish providing the maintenance that we desperately need.
And in that proposal, so currently I think our rules require these projects provide service for about 7 years. Is there like a time limitation for the proposed maintenance and operating support that you're suggesting?
I see what you're saying. No, what we have out there is we would do this annually. This would be an annual report. So we forecast our needs for the next year, and then it repeats itself year after year.
For how long, I guess? For how long would projects receive SRUSF support for maintenance and operation?
Well, as long as there is a shortfall, we would need support. So this is going to be ongoing maintenance support that we're going to need to maintain these facilities, because the purpose of the SRUSF is to make sure that these rural New Mexican customers and residents can receive these vital services, this universal service, basically at affordable rates. If we had to charge them what it actually cost us to maintain our facilities, the rates would be sky high.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any response? Russell?
Sorry, my computer is slow to turn on the audio and video. I could do this research myself, but since y'all are receiving federal funds, I'm just going to ask whoever would like to answer. To start with, this kind of goes to what Erica was asking about, like how we might the commission might structure and limit if limitation is needed maintenance only awards. We have modeled our broadband program significantly upon the federal broadband program. And I wondered if the federal broadband program covers maintenance only awards, if it covers maintenance at all. And if so, how is that limited in any way for any time period or anything like that? I'd appreciate anyone who happens to know.
This is Evelyn Jordan from Western New Mexico. Yes, what Mike explained is the proposal by the NMECG would in fact not double count at all. It would have to subtract off any revenues that the ILEC received, for example, from enhanced ACAM revenues from the FCC or from CAF BLS revenues, both of which are USF mechanisms. So the total costs would be reduced already by any federal support received, which would eliminate any possibility of duplication of the support. So the way the federal works is if you are a CAF BLS company, of which some of the New Mexico Exchange Carrier Group members are, they receive it based on their cost. And that is submitted to NECA, and NECA works with USAC for payments. In the case of the companies that are enhanced ACAM, those are also submitted through USAC. So we intentionally did not want any duplication. We're not asking for duplication. We're in fact saying quite the contrary. We're subtracting all of that revenue out to make sure that the commission can clearly and easily see that those revenues have been eliminated. Did that answer your question?
Yes, I guess the part of it, thank you. I guess I wasn't so much looking at, but that was very helpful, at whether, I mean, certainly we want to avoid duplication, and we don't want to be covering any costs that are covering. Speaking on behalf of the commission, I'm assuming they would not want to be covering any costs that are already covered by the feds. I'm just going to make that assumption. But I do think what I was wondering is any specifics that are being proposed to the commission for how to handle a maintenance only fund, maintenance only awards. Is there a federal model to follow there? Because like I said, when it comes to the way we've structured our broadband program, we have in many ways followed a federal model. And so following a federal model is often a very helpful way to go because they've often figured these things out before we have.
Oh, yes. Sorry that I misunderstood your question. Again, this is Evelyn Jordan, Western New Mexico. Yes, our mechanism, in fact, mirrors the federal substantially. And we did have the word cost study in there, and then we realized that might confuse some people. So we went with the words total jurisdictional New Mexico only costs. So just like NECA, which is the group that the FCC has established, they have a very specific methodology. It must exclude, for example, non-regulated costs. So again, our proposal excludes non-regulated. NECA does require to exclude the ISP costs, which in fact we've done here and mirrored that. So that is excluded as well. So it is very much following what the NECA methodology, the FCC's methodology, which of course is NECA and USAC. So yes, it comports with that in the calculations and the processing. I want to not 100% identical because we have to subtract off the interstate or the federal funds, but yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Bedell, I saw you had your hand raised for a little while. Did you want to add something?
No, I think Evelyn did an excellent job of explaining that. I just want to add to that and part of the greater part of the reason I earlier mentioned that that prioritization be given to rural local exchange carriers, because of our provider of last resort obligations. One example of that is that the federal government has a program, a loan. USDA has a loan program for rural local exchange carriers that it only has for rural local exchange carriers and not competitive carriers, because the USDA recognizes that we rural local exchange carriers, as providers of last resort, have that provider of last resort obligation to our customers, and we're going to be in this for the long haul. So the point I'm trying to make is that as an example of the continued added costs that we incur in provision of service to areas that would be otherwise unserved, is a loan obligation to the federal government. That Sacred Wind borrowed $55 million to completely replace the old copper network that we acquired from the incumbent company, and we built in a brand new network with there was $55 million, and we still owe that money. That our customers and the Universal Service Fund programs are helping to completely satisfy right now.
Thank you for that. Okay. And has everyone had the chance to look at NMECG's proposal for the maintenance calculation? And if not, let me know and maybe we can give everyone an opportunity to respond to the recommendation, either at a separate workshop or in a commissioner, maybe a different bench request. We might do that anyways, might help. Okay, so the next reporting requirement is the appropriate size of the fund, and I understand that this bench request went out before the legislature increased the fund by $10 million, which was the respondents generally agreed that there should be an increase to the SRUSF by approximately $10 million. But if anyone wanted to change their recommendation to the commission or want to comment on that, please let us know now. It's a good time. Well, great. The next request or the next reporting requirement is what criteria should there be for awarding funding? Now, because we have a pending rulemaking, I don't want to get into the commission's criteria for award funding too much. The criteria for funding an award in statute is basically limited to the commission must grant awards based on completely technologically neutral requirement. And most respondents seem to favor the technologically neutral requirement. I think the New Mexico Department of Justice wanted to hear a little bit about why everyone is in favor of a technologically neutral requirement. They're not here, but if they wanted to listen to this YouTube video later, I think this would be a good opportunity for anyone to explain why they support the technologically neutral requirement. Mr. Turley?
Thank you. I think the first thing that I would say is that a technologically neutral approach allows more options and variety for the consumer. And that let them select what they would prefer, whether it be a very robust, dedicated circuit to their home, and if that's what they need, or their business, or if they are in an environment where the best opportunity for them is what's already been mentioned, is something from satellite, and that gets it to them, or what we in primarily in our business, if a mobile broadband option is what they prefer, and would like to have that flexibility, they have all of those options available to them.
Awesome. Mr. Moffett?
Yeah, I was just gonna mention that the NMECG supports a technologically neutral stance on this, with similar to what the FCC put in as a speed requirement and a latency requirement. And technologically that would be neutral. So any companies that had the technology to provide that would be a neutral playing field. And that would, of course, our current speed requirement's 25/3. But as the FCC recognized, that was inadequate for the purposes that the FCC examined. And we believe that the speed requirement should be increased to 100/200. I know that the FCC even has a goal of making the speed goal of 1 gig over 500. So anyway, I just wanted to point out that the NMECG supports the technologically neutral component of this, and we suggest it be 100/20 speed and 100 ms latency.
Eugene?
Thank you, Erica. First of all, I wanted to concur on what Mr. Turley and now what Mr. Moffitt have just basically said. The commission, or I should say staff, when it comes down to technologically neutral, I see that's as a very important point, mainly because we look at the state of New Mexico, and I have been from every corner of this state, and there is different terrains, different circumstances, just different areas where customers may reside, and it is required to have the state to be technologically neutral, mainly because of the different mediums that we can offer broadband services. I'm looking at, from what I'm hearing, or what Mr. Moffitt was saying, having a higher speed of 100/100, 100/20.
I think you cut out, Eugene. I can't hear you. Am I the only one having that issue?
I can't hear you either.
I can't hear you.
It is required to have a certain amount of different technologies to give broadband services to our customers here in the state of New Mexico. That's the bottom line. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind as we move forward with our programs and as a whole. That's part of my issue that I wanted to at least convey to the group here. Because I look at all the projects, I review them, I go through the process with them, and I tend to look at that in a very serious manner, because I'm looking at every particular part of New Mexico, and not just the metro, not just the rural, or even in the areas where it's just straight up farmland or just open land, or in this case also native land. So I have a lot of different areas that I'm looking at. So technology neutral is very important for staff here at the commission.
Thank you. Mr. Turley?
Yes, thank you. Just one further point to make. Mr. Moffitt talked about technologically neutral, but with a speed requirement. And one of the things that we just point out is that putting a stringent speed requirement can actually eliminate certain technologies from adoption. And I think that needs to be considered in whatever speed is deemed acceptable. If you want to truly have a neutral technological rule set, you have to consider what the speeds are that are in that requirement, because it could eliminate some of the options that would be an advantage to certain New Mexicans.
Erica, if I can, I also have, I want to say one more thing. I kind of forgot that I wanted to highlight as well. And that is, I know that we're looking at a speed of 25.3. And I realize that that's relatively low, but guys, understand when I put these applications out every year annually and saying that is our floor, I mean that. And I expect that the companies who are putting applications in is not just staying on the floor. I realize if you're building out your infrastructure, you're building out for the future, and you're going to increase or have the ability to increase your infrastructure as it goes within every year, there's some kind of a change. So don't use the 25.3 as like this some sort of a set in place where you are utilizing that within a conversation. Understand that's your floor. And that's where the commission starts at, but that's not where we expect for you to be. And so if you obviously can do further, or you can, increase that bandwidth, do so. Don't put it up on the floor, because that irritates me as an engineer, and because I know that's something you guys can do as in building out your infrastructure. So let's be honest with that. That's basically what I'm trying to say.
Mr. Badal?
Yeah, and I would like to promise you this is the last time I'll add anything, but I think if I could speak from a customer point of view, I believe it's Section 252 of the Telecommunications Act of 1996, where don't quote me on that, but I think it's at Section 252 or close to it, where telephone service and telecommunication services have to be provided in rural areas comparable to what is provided to urban customers. And for the sake of our urban customers, and this is reinforcing a point I think that Guy Turley is making too, that our customers, as remote as some of them are, should be given the privilege of being offered a choice. And in order to have a choice offered, there has to be a fixed and an unfixed connection to or access provided to customers, just as in an urban area, whether in Santa Fe or Albuquerque. Customers have a choice of one or both a landline service and a mobile service. And I think the commission would be following very strong public policy by ensuring that most rural customers have the same liberty of choosing between services in rural areas as their ability in urban areas. Thank you.
Thank you. Ben?
Yeah, thank you, and my apologies for having to have dropped off earlier. I just wanted to react to what was just said and indicate that I'm not aware of any interpretation of the federal law that has ever indicated that you should overbuild and offer two subsidized services in the same place. It's actually, from a policy perspective, probably not a good idea. Assuming I didn't misunderstand Mr. Badal, and with all due respect, that's simply not something I'm aware has ever been raised as an interpretation of federal law. He's not wrong that there's a comparability requirement, comparable service, and at a reasonably comparable price, I believe, are the general standards. But comparable selection, I think, is what he's trying to imply, is not something I'm aware of under the federal law.
Okay, Thank you for that addition. Okay. And I realize that we've been here for about an hour and a half, but there are only two more questions and none of them were controversial. So unless Commissioner, you disagree, would you like a bio break? I suspect we go on for another 30 minutes otherwise.
I think if it's another 30 minutes, maybe we can just go ahead and finish. Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Okay. So we have the award criteria, which we just discussed, and then the question, the next reporting requirements was whether there would be any proposed changes that would change the per connection cost assessment, and no one thought there would be any changes to the per connection cost requirement based on anyone's recommendation on what should be done with the ARS funds. Does anyone want to comment on that or disagrees with that assessment? Okay. Great. Well, then the next question, again, there is unanimous support for prepaid telecommunication services being required to collect SRUSF assessments at the point of sale. Everyone seems to agree with this approach, unless anyone wants to change their recommendations. Okay, perfect. The NMDOJ recommended evaluating the actual levels of subscribership to the broadband services. I was requiring how onerous of a request that would be for the ETCs. Is that something that you guys would be able to get quickly, or would that require some gathering of information? Mostly just to assess if this is something we can do for this year's report. Does anyone have a response? Would that be?
Erica, can you be a little more clear? What exactly would you need the ETCs to provide? What information? And then
I
maybe
think the
respond.
number of customers provided per project. Or, yeah. How many customers each project provides service to?
Would that be currently there, Erica? I assume that's what they're
Right.
referring to.
Isn't that in the applications, Eugene?
I'm thinking that it would be initially, but that's why I say it's currently. That means the application's been a while. Have you added more to them? So other than what's been presented in the past. So basically, I'm assuming that you adding more customers. I'm hoping you do. So it might be something that you may currently have to dig out. If that's what I'm hearing, what Erica is making mention of.
Yeah, it would be the current subscribership levels, basically, is what the NMDOG is recommending.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, we'd have to track every project, and then we'd have to say, okay, what is our current subscribership based on that area where that project's done? And then
That's right.
how hard would that be for the companies to come up with that number?
That's right.
Okay, I'll let the companies respond to that. I don't know.
Now, Mike, one thing I can say, according to my own information that I have, yes, I have what was reported as your customers. Now, that's something that I can obviously will give Erica from each year since what? I'm assuming they want to go back to the conception year of 2018 there, Erica. I can go with each company's project submission of their customers that they stated that will be utilizing this particular service and give that information to her. Now, my question still rises each and every year, has there been any increases from what you reported in your application? If so, that needs to be given to Eric. Is that clear? Everyone? Anyone?
Well, this is Evelyn Jordan, Western New Mexico, and I apologize. I'm really not clear for those of us who would have not applied for prior grants under this program, what you're wanting. I can definitely
It wouldn't apply to you.
What?
Evelyn, it wouldn't apply to you. If you have not applied to anything for this program, that this request probably wouldn't apply to you.
Okay, but yet we definitely are needing the support once the current New Mexico USF stops. So when the access restructure funds stop in 26, we would want to be included. Mike, help me out here because I'm kind of baffling.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what they're asking for is if you applied for any broadband project, in your application, you projected, oh, we should be able to serve this many locations or households. And that was what was projected. And then once the project is finished, how many, I guess, households or locations, customers, have you been able to reach? They want that number based on the project you applied for.
The take rate, Jason?
So that's for historic ones who've already applied. Is there a similar requirement of any sort for the?
No, this would not be for moving forward. It would just be for this report, and it's just a consideration recommended by the NMDOJ. So just I'm kind of weighing how hard of an ask is this?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Hibbert? Sorry, you're muted.
We do that for a lot of other programs. I mean, I'm still reporting quarterly on the BIP awards from 2010. So, you know, we still have to do that. I mean, it is just one more thing. I'm not sure I see the benefit of doing that, but it wouldn't be a hard ask. I don't think.
Okay.
But it sounds like it's a one-time ask. I'm not quite sure, Erica, that seems to be the case.
Yeah. I'll have to dig into the NMDOJ's request one more time. And then I think that was all of the questions we asked. There is one more question. I think this is a good question to leave off on is any barriers that the ETCs have experienced in constructions and maintenance. We've gone over maintenance, but maybe construction of the projects that undermine the efforts of digital equity and inclusion in rural New Mexico.
Well, this is Evelyn Jordan, I can explain for Western. We have been working on Reconnect grants, Reconnect 3 and Reconnect 4 grants for 2.5 years, trying to get environmental clearance. And we have not given up, and we are not giving up, but we have worked diligently, including having engineers and environmental consultants, because it is extremely challenging to get all the approvals necessary to get environmental clearance. So 2.5 years, I'm guessing what we have had very small areas approved. So we managed to get 1,125 fiber to the homes in 24, but it was literally carving out small areas, and we're doing the same so we could get approval for that small area. But with BLM, Forest Service, it's a challenge. It is absolutely a challenge to get those approved. If you have to have a railroad crossing, oh my gosh, it's incredibly challenging. We have an area in the Alamo Navajo tribal area that we are still trying to get the tribe, and then we have to get BIA.
Western, she's a contract. She owns her own contracting company. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Paul, you're talking. Were you trying to say something, Paul?
No, I'm sorry.
So I just wanted to put on the record that in case of Western, we have been trying, like I said, about 2.5 years so far, and we're absolutely intent on keeping going, but it's a challenge. I just want to put that on the record.
Thank you. Lana?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. By far, the most difficulty is born at the beginning of a project, and that's because of the environmentals and the permitting. And as an example, we're in the middle of a 5-year NTIA middle mile build, and we have not even put the plow in the ground yet. We're 2 years into it. So, or almost 2 years into it. And between all of the environmentals, the cultural permitting, we're ready to go. We're ready to go. We have the materials and we have the capability and the people, but just actually being able to get started because of the regulatory burdens, those are probably the biggest fights that we have at the very front end of a project.
Yeah. Mr. Moffat?
Yeah, and just to tag on to that, it's difficult in these rural areas to get surveyors and other professionals out to the areas to perform the various inspections or various requirements that are needed. And so those kind of barriers are why we suggested that the commission consider extending the 3-year deadline that's currently there to 5 years, which is similar to some of the federal requirements.
Great.
Well,
Right.
Erica, one thing I would like to add is, if it's okay, I agree with all those comments, but it's also in tribal areas where we serve. We have additional requirements on top of that. We have NEPA requirements. You have right-of-way fees and adjustment we have to make. So those projects usually it's normal to take 3 years to 5 years to build. We have programs right now projects right now where it's almost 5 years and we start breaking ground right now. So I think on top of that, if you're in tribal areas, you have additional requirements as well. So.
Okay. Thank you. And those are all my questions. Does anyone have any last minute comments? Eugene?
Sorry, I had to do it. I'm hearing all the roadblocks. Anyone have any suggestions on how the state can improve all these roadblocks or these requests for information or paper to be passed? And I'm speaking not only statewide, BLM, I'm also talking tribal as well. I know that it seems to be a quagmire of time that is over the years I've been doing this. Is always one thing or another that is delaying projects or even causing projects to be pulled out. As a group, guys, do we have any other ideas or any ideas that how we can maybe suggest on how this can be corrected or at least smoothed out in a better manner, overall that, that we can kind of work and get it quickly done if it's possible? That's going to everybody.
I think it's going to be a separate workshop, Eugene, right? It's going to be a whole day workshop, I'm guessing, right?
Yeah.
Eugene, the only thing I would say is for any agency, whatever it might be, if the people reviewing were looking for a reason to say yes instead of a reason to say no. That's what I often see is they look for a reason to say no rather than, okay, how can I find a way to move this through?
Eugene, sorry, this is Johnny Montoya. I couldn't hit the camera button, but real quick, at least from Windstream's perspective, the state land office has a pretty good model. I know some of us have issues with the land office. For us in particular, they have done a phenomenal job on helping to process their permitting. They have an internal process where they prioritize all broadband projects. So if there's an application submitted, it's a broadband application, they prioritize those. DOT is a whole different animal. They had a 2-year process to implement a brand new online portal, which was supposed to streamline things and speed things up, and it slowed things down and made it even worse. So we're having a lot of issues with DOT. But I think the state land office, from our perspective, is a pretty good model to use. But I think it's, as was said, I think it's an effort that has to happen at an agency level. And they have to make broadband a priority in their processes.
Thank you, John.
Eugene, this is Paul. I just had one more comment, please.
Go ahead, Paul.
I think I had suggested it earlier, and we've talked internally with NMECG, but and I think you and I have talked about possibly extending these broadband application periods to 5 years so that we would have a chance to get them done. Then we wouldn't have to come to you and say, hey, Eugene, sorry, but we can't get this done in 3 years. I see with BEAD and some of these other programs, I think it's going to get even harder. So that's one thing I would like you and the staff and the PRC to consider, is extending this out. I know we want to get it done. We're not going to wait until year 4 to start, but sometimes we just can't wait. We can't hurry it up if we can't get the material and the contractors. Thank you.
Daniel?
Just to kind of piggyback off what Paul said, I mean, the way that like RUS does it is that timeline, that shot clock doesn't even start until you get environmental approval. So until you get, you know, a lot of that stuff done, then you get that environmental approval and then that shot clock starts. So I mean, that might be something to consider too, whether we're extending the timeline or just moving that shot clock so it doesn't start until approval to actually put plows to ground is there.
Thank you, Dan. You know, that's a good point. You know, even our broadband program, before I even have the applicants to even submit a distribution estimate, you must have all your permits and any kind of road issues in place before you even, you know, so we can know that you're ready to hit that job now because you have no deterrence on that. So I agree with that, and that's when the cart should start in a lot of ways. But I think it probably will take a kind of a rulemaking in order to change some portion of the rule when it comes down to 3 to 5 years. It's a good idea. I guess somewhere down the line, we're gonna have some internal conversations to see if that's something that we're admitted to in some ways as a commission. So thank you, everyone. That's what I'm looking for.
Thank you for that question. That was a good one. And those are all the questions I had. I really appreciate you guys coming and getting together and talking about this. I thought it was extremely enlightening and very helpful understanding your guys' perspective. Commissioner, I'll pass it over to you.
Well, a similar comment. I think, well, this has been incredibly helpful for me to hear directly from you, and I appreciate some of you I've met before, and some of you I've seen your name written down somewhere, and now it's nice to put a face to the name. I'm taking away a lot from this conversation. I think that's all I have by way of comments. I am going to check to see if Commissioner Nybert would like to provide any comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Aguilera. I'd just like to thank everybody for their time and attention to this matter. And, you know, we will try to do what we can, particularly on timeframes. Sometimes those may be statutory and we may not be able to do it, but to the extent that we have an ability to look at that issue and extend that time, that seems like a reasonable request, as well as some of the other requests that you all made, and we're pleased that you brought those to our attention. Thank you for spending your afternoon with us.
And last thank you to our staff on this call for navigating the conversation, setting it up, and I'm sure Commissioner Nybert and I will be hearing from them soon on this. And with that, I will not keep you guys any longer. The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much,
everybody.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Have a great weekend.
Very informative.